Well, welcome. I think this is kind of a combination of all the other kind of talks we've had and videos I've been about, is to kind of get to your skills, your rotations, how to kind of pump up as much heals per second as possible and still maintain a lot of control on the raid. Obviously, rotation is a very hard thing to work out on a minstrel. It's kind of very subjective, and sometimes I've seen guys with amazing heals per second still lose tanks because they burn their skills at the incorrect time. So it's kind of hard to say, oh, you need to be hitting this many heals a second, or this. Obviously, in general, heals a second kind of means survival, but at the same time, there's nothing more important than good instinct. If you can kind of keep people alive by saving your big ones, it doesn't matter if you're freaking doing 35 heals a second, 35k heals a second, as long as you kind of keeping the fellowship alive. Let's start off with Blue Minstrel. We built this trait tree in the trait tree video. It's obviously the one we recommend and we kind of feel it's got the most survival and the biggest heals. As we said before, remembering that we can improve the inductions. As we've traded already in all the ways we can get our inductions down to 1.8 seconds on a bolster courage. Let's play around with that obviously and see what we can do. I'm obviously not going to be in combat for healing for this, and I will post a video after this of me doing a bit of COS T2 kind of 115 in yellow blue and yellow red blue, because we ran with an arcane. I was just messing around just to try and get kind of the concept, and I'll try to talk over and explain to you that more so, but I'll also kind of go over yellow a bit. So obviously just before the fight starts and you've got the tank or the raid leader or whatever counting down, which technically should actually be your yellow mini or the DPS mini who's stacking the anthem, should be doing the countdown to kind of control so that he's back in the right trait tree. But when you hear the countdown and you're the blue mini now, what you want to be doing is straight away go Cry of the Chorus, pretty much on to Anthem of War, Third Age Anthem. Immediately I like to get in it, Spies Fellows, cut the induction with Soliloquy, and then basically the whole idea is to kind of instant. Every single time you use an inductant spell, use an instant one afterwards to cut the induction. Obviously this isn't the rotation, but you're getting the idea. If you can see it there, instant afterwards, and then what you're trying to do is you're trying to get that speed down. See, bolster's gone down to 0.3 seconds, and when it starts to get down to like 0.3, I would just spam bolsters. There's no point going off for an instant spell because your bolsters are going to be so much larger, and the splash heals. When you feel like your bolsters are slowing down, like there, I would start to kind of go back up, see 0.8 seconds. You can kind of see it in the induction though. You can see that induction bar is taking longer. And also what I would like to do, see interrupted there, that's also what you want to do. So you don't want to cast your instant spell too quick. As you can see, it's built up speed now. So now make the most. Cut bolsters with more bolsters. If you double tap it, slow down. That's kind of the feeling you want to get. So as you can see, from trading it correctly and getting a couple of heals, your bolsters obviously can go down pretty far. It almost goes to near instant, was like a 0.3 induction time. And like I said to you, when it starts getting down and you can see your induction bar, how long it's taken to kind of come across, start just spamming bolsters towards the end. And when it starts to slow down, use Soliloquy. What I like to do personally is I like to swap between tanks with Soliloquy. So what I'll do is I'll focus heal the tank who's taking the most damage, or the one who needs the most heals. And then what I'll do is I'll use either Soliloquy on him, or I'll start stacking Soliloquy on the other one to try and make sure I've got Soliloquy on both tanks for the extra bits and also just extra heals per second, so that when that next tank starts taking the damage, it's not dire need. Obviously, if you want to, you can cut inductions with Court of Salvation, which is instant, Triumphant Spirit, which is instant. If I ever get to the point in a fight where, like I said before, spirits are inducted on me and I need to move, and I'm starting to see, especially at that point in boss 1 where you see several spirits inducting, you start to see the DPS group and the tank group and everyone's morale drop in a little bit or whatever because they may be in the incorrect position. What I'll do is, as I start to move, I'll use Court Eye Whip because it's got that cooldown, and then straight away into an Inspire Fellows to kind of get that big fellowship heal out. I mean, as you can see, only 23k on me, but it could crit on the other people, and if I've got my anthems up, which is obviously dropped off now, it turns into big heals. Other things I like to do is keep Battle Melody on a tank or myself, just for that extra survivability. It's tiny, it's 1.7, who cares, but still. Things I also like to do is, if I need to move but I have pre-notice, I use Quarters of the Second Age, which can reset with your Cries and Calls reset. So say in CAS, if you have a tank who's not used to the run and they start to do the kite tanking, and they're getting nice and close, what I do is pop aside them and give them the Quarters of the Second Age for the attack speed buff. And like I was saying, other than that, obviously your razor is nice and short, with blue, which is a bonus of being in a blue mini. 2 minutes 30 seconds, that seems a little bit long, but I mean, it must be right. I'm traded correctly. No, okay, I guess it's 2 minutes 30 seconds. I assumed it was 1 minute 30. That's completely my bad. Obviously, you have your pot fellowship wide, your out of combat res. Remembering as you stack anthems, Anthem of War, then Third Age all the time. You can keep your Code of Resonance up just in case. I never really use it. I don't like to use it because what it does is it burns your Cry of the Chorus, i.e. your 3 ballads, and also your buff that you get in your Anthem. So if you've got the time to cast it and reset quickly, but I think that time, I mean, that's like 3-4 seconds of no heals, and that's just too much in my opinion. Other than that, also Major Ballad is not a bad one to use when you're on the move and you've kind of got soliloquies up. If you've got 3 of them, they don't really stack past 3, so if you want to kind of also throw in Major Ballads as you're moving, because obviously you can't cast induct and spells on the move. Fellowship's Heart I really actually like. I usually use it at a point where if I see the other mini drops by any chance, or if I kind of get towards the last bit of a fight, or I use your Triumphant Spirit and you see like another supplicant about to sacrifice himself, whatever, I'll maybe cast it and just keep it up. I mean, it's a 30-second heal over time. You just got 5-minute cooldown, so I mean, you can't cast it tons of times in a fight, but it's definitely not the worst thing in the world to use. And then obviously Triumphant Spirit's your big keep everybody alive, for goodness sake, heal. And that's pretty much it. Things you can probably ignore in blue is Razor Spirit. It's not really good in blue. Healer Strike, I mean, unless you're having trouble keeping yourself alive in a heal race, I mean, it's not really a massive heal, but still it is pretty decent. Perfect. Obviously there are ways to boost your healing and stuff, which by hook or by crook do exist, so we can go over those, but obviously if you can keep it as natural as possible, that is great. Okay, cool. Healing in yellow, slightly different, but fairly similar. Remember, this is not the yellow, red, blue build, this is the yellow, blue build. It's pretty much almost like having your blue build. You're losing obviously the passives that come with blue, and you're losing your SOS ability. So how do we do this? Let's have a look first of all at what you're going to be doing. Anything with yellow is support based and buff based, pretty much in my opinion, in game. I mean, there are exceptions, but that's kind of what it's supposed to be about. So let's have a look at your anthems. Obviously these anthems are the exact same in blue, but usually in blue you're only maintaining one on yourself, which would be the Third Age anthem, which is why when you cast them you go Anthem of War then Third Age, so that you're always making sure the last one is the one you want. Which is the reduced inductions, which is how we're getting those bolsters out as quick as we were with 10% outgoing healing. Obviously, the Anthem of War was a lot better at the 105 cap because of the fact that Mastery, outgoing healing cap before Mastery cap. Now, obviously, it's the other way around. So, at the point of yellow, when you cast in Anthem of War, then Third Age, Anthem of War, then Third Age, you're going to be maintaining 2 of these, which means minus 50% induction time. Note that minus 50% induction time is taken into account without this minus 20% healing. So if we get heals now that are going off at, it's kind of complicated because that would be 2.4. Remember, it was about 2.3, 2.4 seconds. We get a minus 50% on that number, not on this 1.8, which it currently is on. It sounds complicated. It's not complicated. It basically just means that we're getting on that, not on this number, but actually before this was even traded. That's the induction it takes, because it takes a straight line induction. So we've been minus 50% induction on the original untrated skill duration. 10% outgoing healing as a multiplier, which actually stacks in your outgoing healing, which is not the modifier here that we see from Soothing Voice. On top of that, we're getting an extra 7,300 mastery, which technically would equate to, I imagine, about 1% outgoing healing on top of that, which isn't bad. But obviously the speed is what we want. Regardless of what's buffed on us, the Fellowship will receive the extra, it's 21,900 mastery, which means that they can drop that to be sat at probably about 200k mastery, and still then end up being mastery capped. On top of that, they're actually getting a 15% damage. That buff's on top, so if they're sat capped at 400% outgoing damage and they have these, it will actually go up to 415. It doesn't cap 400, it can actually push past. The mastery will cap though at the mastery cap. Hope that makes sense. But basically, as a minstrel, all you need to know is you're increasing everyone's damage. Call to the Second Age, obviously this is the big one from yellow, is the minus attack duration and the minus skill inductions. I believe for hunters that's a double boost, because that minus skill induction is also from their base stats. Before the blue hunter or whatever traits anything, that minus 10 is from the overall initial figure, and then on top of that, attack speed. So it's a double buff for them, in essentially. Also now, we've got the chance to reset cries and calls. So which means is, as we heal, this resets. Obviously, it's the chance we can't have as great, or we could maybe pull from other places to try and make it greater. But I don't really think it's as necessary. I think that it is a good figure to have. And because, remember, we're healing a lot quicker, we're healing quicker with all the crit chance that we had before, as you can see. So the chances to crit to reset is a lot higher and faster, i.e. we will be resetting quite often, and therefore you can spam this buff and keep it up majority of the time. So rather than 10 seconds every 30 seconds, you could probably keep it up maybe every 22 to 25 seconds every 30 seconds. Obviously being time to refresh anthems and to do other supporting moves. So that's pretty much in the way of buffing. I have my Resonant Piercing Cry here, mostly due to the fact of, even though I haven't got the extra bolsters and Raise the Spirit traded, remembering I have that in my blue build. So if I ever run my yellow, I hope and I pray that the blue mini has it traded, so that while they're using it, it's a raid wide buff, which means my bolsters and Raise the Spirits also have increased healing on the target. So obviously that's a very big supporting one. However, as you can see, I had one trade point left over, and instead of using it to decrease Anthem cooldown, I've used it in Shield and Cry, which basically increases parry rating for the Fellowship, and it has a 15% damage reflect. That damage reflect is really good, especially in prolonged fights, and also obviously the parry rating. It's technically a buff, but it's a DPS buff, which obviously means you need some finesse, which is why in the stats panel one, I remember I said to you, finesse isn't the worst thing in the world to be able to hit your cries, to be able to spark this buff onto your Fellowship, and also it's a corruption removal, which, as everyone knows, is a good thing. So technically it's not as buffing as these, however it is semi-buffing. Now let's get back to the nitty-gritty, how you heal in yellow. A lot of people have very misconception of how you actually get to do your healing in yellow. Let's be honest with ourselves. If you're running yellow, 9 times out of 10, there's a blue cap, not blue cap, a cappy with a revealing mark placed in the raid somewhere, allowing the DPS to heal off of the revealing mark. And good DPS can get, I don't know, 9, 10k heals a second, depending on the DPS. So already, 90% of your job's done. They're getting healed. Their DPS is healing themselves. The only time they need extra healing is when, they fail to do one of the mechanics, and you've just got to step in. So heals aren't really as important. Remember, like I said to you before, even though your heals aren't as large as when you're in blue, you're healing DPS group 90% of the time. So they don't require as many heals. take into account you get minus 50% induction, plus the minus 20 from your straight tree. You get plus 10% outgoing healing. You get an extra percent over here. You know, you're going to reduced attack durations and inductions, and also buffs on yourself. Remember, obviously 5 meters, so you have to pretty much stack all on top of each other. On top of that, these obviously get faster the more you crit, and because you're healing at such great speed, your crits are going up a lot quicker. You actually get to the point where your bolsters and raise the spirits are instant, especially raise the spirit. On top of that, it's got a 1.5 second cooldown, so you can't spam raise the spirit the way you would spam bolster. So what you end up doing in yellow is actually switching between the two, and that's how you're healing. So I have a very nice add-on called raid heals, and as I basically get more people in my raid or fellowship, this starts to stack up, as you'll see in the video, and I can switch between them quite easily. Instead of having to try to pay attention here, this is their morale bar and that's their power bar. So what I do is I switch between them, and as I switch, I already get the next heal going. So if I'm switching between tunes, I've already set up that the next one's going to be a bolster, the next one's going to be a raise the spirits. Obviously it's not the greatest in case something's instantly needed, but then click on the person and instant cast with a Cord of Salvation or a Triumphant Spirit, which obviously I have traded in this yellow tree. That raises the spirits and that bolster are so quick that you'll be able to fly through the DPS group and pull them all up in a couple of seconds. And like I said before, yellow has the biggest cross heals because of all of these. You can heal a tank quicker than a blue mini can heal a tank if he was in the DPS group trying to heal into the tank group. So it's definitely a very good kind of position and build to have. The only problem about it is the fact that you're refreshing anthems every, say, 40-45 seconds because you keep trying to maintain 3. And also if you start to let your anthems or the third age drop, your inductions and skills get slower and slower. So the whole problem with the yellow minstrels, yes, they have big heals. Yes, they buff up and they do a lot more, they allow the fellowship to do a lot more damage and quicker. The only problem is they can't maintain that sort of healing for long periods of time. It's the same with the blue minstrel, but the blue minstrel can get away with just quickly throwing the resonant anthem of the third age on and then just keep on healing. He doesn't need to refresh anthem or more because 90% of the time he only has tanks in his group and some bergs and LMs and things that don't really need the extra mastery. Where a yellow mini would be a waste if they didn't actually refresh anthem more every single time they refresh the anthems. So like I said before, we still have these heals that we're using. We're still maintaining Inspired Fellows. We have the Cord of Salvation for big heals, especially into the tank group. You know, pulling up tanks. Remember, it gets the fellowship heal over time on the group you cast it on. Obviously, Triumphant Spirit, big heal, especially for your DPS group, especially if there's a big knock all of a sudden, like a nice explosion or induction, and you want to keep everybody alive on the move. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Obviously, other things to notice is Code of Resonance gets a 15% incoming heal modifier for 12 seconds on the fellowship. So that's a bonus on blue. Although now when you cash out, obviously you're going to have to cash out on all 3 freaking ballads and 3 anthems. So that's definitely not a nice thing to do. I mean, it's pretty much a last resort sacrifice. And then obviously if you have the balls for it, Song of Aid, not bad if your hunters are kind of struggling for focus, your captain wants a defeat response, everybody wants to kind of just have that little bit of a buff. The only problem is it's a channeled skill, and to channel a skill for 10 seconds is it's ballsy in a fight, unless you're very sure that there's not going to be any damage incoming. It is quite a good refresher, and I do use it every now and then in COS when I'm running with a hunter, just to kind of give them that little bit extra. And obviously remember, Fellowship's Heart, 30-second heal over time, not bad to use, you know, especially at a point where you know there's going to be lots of splash damage onto the DPS group. Just throw in Fellowship's Heart and then just focus on the tanks. Perfect. Like I said before, I'm going to post a video of me running COS with a couple of guys, and I'll be healing in blue, yellow, blue, red, yellow. I mean, yellow, blue, yellow, red, blue. And yeah, hopefully I can explain to you what I'm doing and you can understand.